You don't need a fancy staff or to be the chosen one to survive in Tolkien's universe. The only thing you need to survive here is a sharp piece of metal and enough insane courage to thrust it into the face of the 3-meter tall troll, dragon, or the Vala himself standing in front of you. But not everyone is born an Aragorn, right? While some made sword handling into an art form, some were just lucky. I have combed through all the sources, manuscripts, and dusty Silmarillion pages inherited from Tolkien. I extracted not only what you saw in the movies, but also the psychopathic details remaining within small shared notes in the depths of the books. Today, we will explain warriors in 7 different levels, starting from the most incompetent in Middle-earth history to the Deities, who challenged Eru himself, if you want to know more than the people who asked. Why didn't the eagles take the ring? Subscribe and like the video because you are in the right place. Sharpen your swords, we are starting. Level 1 fruit knife wielders and lucky noobs. At the bottom of the list are those who shouldn't actually be on the battlefield. These friends had no such thing as technique or style. For them, war consisted merely of shouting, "Please don't eat me," and randomly swinging the pointy thing in their hands. But do not underestimate them, because those at this level possess something that even the most masterful knights do not have such talent for. Their power came from purity, unadulterated 100% organic luck. Our flag bearer here is of course Samwise Gamgee. Look, we love Sam very much. The man was just an ordinary gardener with a regular job like all of us for once. His biggest worry was potatoes growing well and trying to make Rosie Cotton fall in love with him. But things changed when fate took him and dropped him onto the lightless, dark, savagery-filled hills of Mordor. Remember what happened at Cirith Ungol. While Frodo was lying on the ground like a dinner package by Shelob, Sam stood against a gigantic spider with a small elven sword in his hand, namely Sting, and the illuminated star glass given by Galadriel. Technically, Sam should have been eaten within seconds by this psychopathic spider. The creature we call Shelob is no ordinary spider. She was the last daughter of the horror coming from the cosmic era of Ungoliant, who had once scared even Melkor and made him scream. But what did Sam do? He didn't swing the sword randomly. When Shelob collapsed on top of Sam with her massive body to crush him, Sam held the sword upwards and Shelob impaled herself on the sword with her own weight. Was this a practiced technique? Of course not. Sam had just stood against the huge spider, having lost his mind from fear. His brain and his loyalty to Frodo inside him had swapped places. He gathered his courage, and although it looked like he made a masterful move, what he did was just a reflexive action. But it worked, didn't it? Almost no one had been able to directly harm Shelob up until that time. The poor bug fled screaming in pain. Sam had entered the cave as a gardener and emerged as a spider slayer. This was an unexpectedly very high achievement for level 1. Another example of ours is the legendary Bilbo Baggins. In the Hobbit book, Tolkien mentions as follows: when the dwarves were attacked by giant spiders in Mirkwood, Bilbo put on his ring, became invisible, threw stones at the spiders, and started mocking them. "Attercop! Attercop!" he shouted cephalopod and confused the spiders. Bilbo's sword mastery was actually a great courage in his tiny heart, combined with the advantage of being invisible. But for someone at this level to take a Gondolin sword like Sting in his hand and say, "I name this Sting," was the peak of level 1. Those at this level do not duel, they survive. You remember Merry. He was able to change the fate of the war by stabbing a Nazgul lord in the leg. They were technically zeros, but their courage and luck were magnificent. Level 2 soldiers and pawns welcome to the second level. The characters at this level know which end of the sword to hold. They have received basic training, can make formations and follow orders. But unfortunately, their duty is to be the pawns of those at higher levels and show how sharp their swords are. Here there are Orcs and Uruk-hai. Orcs are actually tragic creatures. It is said they were derived from elves corrupted by torture by Melkor. They have lives consisting of pain, hatred, and bad food. In one-on-one combat, they might be stronger than any peasant. But if there are special races like an Aragorn, a Legolas, or Gimli facing them, then they have no other choice but death alone. They are not smart enough. In these aspects, they resemble animals acting instinctively. However, at the peak of this level are the Uruk-hai. These races, which are Saruman's wonders of genetic engineering, can withstand sunlight, are taller, more muscular, and definitely angrier. The discipline they showed at Helm's Deep while carrying gigantic battering rams or climbing ladders separates them from the level 1 goblin hoarders. Nevertheless, they win with herd psychology rather than individual skill. We must also put the soldiers of Gondor and the nameless riders of Rohan in this level. Yes, they did that magnificent horse ride at the Pelennor Fields. We got goosebumps while they were shouting, "Death! Death!" But let's be honest, in that battle, most of them fell off their horses and died, even just by the Nazgul flying over them, or were crushed by gigantic elephants known as Mumakil. They were always needed in battles fought against Orc armies, but they could never be legends. They were just a group of soldiers trying to protect humanity until a powerful leader like Aragorn came along. Speaking of trolls, their biggest weakness is sunlight. Do you remember those 3 trolls Bilbo encountered? Tom, Bert, and William. Gandalf turned them to stone by making them argue until morning. But Sauron corrected this mistake and produced trolls called Uruk-hai, which are resistant to sun, smarter, and armored. The troll Pippin killed was one of these new generation, upgraded trolls. Luviel 3 Master Warayas Aed Smell Beauty EFTT. Now we have come to the level where things get serious, where you would say, I wouldn't encounter and fight this guy anywhere, on the street or at a bar. We have risen above the pure idiot levels. These characters do not just survive on the battlefield, they start to dominate it. If we compare this level with the current generation, we can call it the level of soldiers serving in special forces, not standard soldiers. Gimli is in the first place son of Gloin. This dwarf's body was like stone, just like other dwarves. His stature may be short, but it was no coincidence that he won the bet. He entered with Legolas at Helm's Deep 42-41. Gimli's fighting style is far from grace. He swings his axe and smashes everything in front of him. Dwarven endurance is at a legendary level. They do not get tired, endure pain, and most importantly, they are stubborn. They do not quit a fight or a race without winning. Then there is Boromir. We generally remember Boromir as the man whose mind was seduced by the ring, but do not underestimate his warrior capability. At Amon Hen, he fought with dozens of Uruk-hai alone to protect Merry and Pippin. An arrow stuck in his body, he continued fighting. A second arrow stuck, he continued again. He didn't fall until the third arrow stuck. This man was one of the best and strongest soldiers of Gondor. Boromir was the combination and embodiment of the concept of technique and power, but his arrogance prevented him from rising above this level. And Ema, third marshal of the Ridamar. When his king Theoden fell at Pelennor Fields and he thought his sister Eowyn was dead, who wasn't dead, just unconscious, Ema went into such a fit of rage that he didn't care about dying or killing. Shouting death, ride, ruin, and ending of the world, he alone split the enemy lines. Ema was pure, unbridled battle energy. The common feature of those at this level, they can stop an army, they can command, but they still make mistakes that make one feel they are mortal or get wounded. They are not superheroes, just very, very good soldiers. Level 4 heroes and supernaturally gifted, this is the point where we step a bit beyond the laws of physics and real life. In other levels, we will move on to true supernatural powers. These characters do not fight, they dance on the battlefield. At the peak is Aragorn. The man was 87 years old but looked 30. Yes, this man was very old. I'm sure there were many who didn't know. If you're hearing this for the first time, there are many more things you don't know. Come and subscribe, join us. You don't know what details we will learn together. So how did this happen? Because he had Numenor blood in his veins, a certain amount of Maya genetics inside him. Aragorn does not just wield a sword well, he fought with his will. At Helm's Deep, along with just Ymma beside him, he repelled a huge army leaning ladders against the walls. When he drew Anduril from its scabbard, the sword shone like a flame. But his real power was seen in the paths of the dead. He commanded the ghost army that had found no peace for thousands of years, killing everything living out of fear, saying, I am Isildur's heir, fulfill your oath, fighting not with a sword or human abilities, but by marching an army to war with his special blood, and his gaze caused him to be the indispensable name of level 4. And of course Legolas. Him skateboarding with a shield in the movies or toppling a Mumakyle, that is an elephant. Alone might seem a bit exaggerated, but in the books too Legolas is superhuman. He walks on snow without sinking. We also saw this in the Hobbit movie. He sees kilometers away even in the dark, does not get tired and does not sleep because he could sleep while walking. Legolas had mastered warfare to such an extent for him drinking water made no difference to eating food, because he was a special elf who had lived for thousands of years and had not just devoted himself to music. He is relaxed enough to fix his hair while spreading death with his bow. We must add the Third Age version of Glorfindel to this level as well. Do you remember the summoning the river scene Arwen did in the Fellowship of the Ring movie? The reality of that was actually not like that. In the book, Glorfindel was the one who did that. The man possessed such a bright aura that the 9 Nazgul fled to the river altogether upon seeing him. Even the Witch King hesitated to confront him. Glorfindel was an elf lord who existed simultaneously in the physical world and the spirit world. This level is where ordinary swordsmanship ends and magic and spiritual power comes into play. But the real bombshell starts after this. Because now we are going beyond the universe, that is nature. Level 5 legends and beast slayers, now fasten your seatbelts, because we are descending into the deep level not shown in the movies, known only to those who read deep lore. Books like the Silmarillion and the Children of Hurin. We are talking about the heroes of the First Age. That is Aragorn's grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. Aragorn remains like a talented scout beside them. It's good they didn't live to see this incompetence of his. Imagine a sword that talks to its owner. Yes, you heard right. After Turin accidentally killed his best friend Beleg Anglachel, which would later take the name Gurthang, had turned black. This sword was made from a meteorite fallen from the sky and carried the evil spirit of the dark elf smith named Yul. Before committing suicide, Turin asked the sword, "Would you kill me?" And the sword spoke, "Yes, I will gladly drink your blood, so I may forget the blood of my master Beleg, it said. This level is the level our minds and intellects will not accept. We are facing a level where even swords get depressed. Hadrin is here. He is accepted as the greatest warrior of the human race ever. Why? At Nernath Arnoidia, that is the battle of unnumbered tears, while elf armies were scattering, Hurin and his men refused to retreat. Hurin remained alone. He got hold of an orc commander's axe. Gothmogs, the lord of Balrogs, troll guards surrounded him. What did Hurin do? Every time he swung the axe, he shouted, "Orin Tuluva! Day shall come again!" Exactly 70 times! Yes, according to sources, this man had mowed down 70 trolls and countless orcs alone. In the end, they couldn't defeat him with weapons, because they wanted to capture him alive on Morgoth's order. So many orcs piled on top of him that they were able to capture him when he became unable to move, staying under the piles of corpses whose arms and legs were cut off. And his son Turin Turambar. He was the most tragic, most cursed but most lethal character of Middle-earth. His black sword Gurthang was the sword I just mentioned, made from meteorite and able to talk. He killed the dragon Glorong alone. Glorong was no ordinary dragon. He was the father of dragons. He could do mind control. When Turin thrust his sword into the dragon's soft belly, he used such great power that the dragon destroyed everything around it while writhing in pain. Turin did not get the nickname Master of Doom for nothing. There is also Ecthelion. He was known as the Gate Warden of Gondolin. During the siege of Gondolin, he encountered the main villain Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, who killed Fingon and took Hurin prisoner. Ecthelion was wounded, his sword had fallen. What did he do? By thrusting the sharp point on his helmet into Gothmog's chest, he pushed the huge Balrog into the fountain, and they both drowned and died together, killing a Balrog lord by head-butting, technically helmet butting. This is level 5. In the Rings of Power series, we see the Dwarf King doing a similar scene. Actually, it was inspired by Ecthelion. Level 6 deities and god slayers. The characters at this level are so powerful that even their presence blinds the enemy. This is the peak of power because this is the level of beings powerful enough to fight with Eru. The undisputed king of this level is Fingolfin, High King of the Noldor, at the Dagor Bragollach battle. When he thought his people were defeated and everything was over, he was seized by such great rage that he jumped on his horse and rode alone to Morgoth's fortress Angband. He was going so fast and furiously that those who saw him thought Orm, that is the hunter Vala, was coming and immediately fled from there. Fingolfin stood at the gates of Angband, blew his horn, and challenged Morgoth to single combat. Who is Morgoth? The black enemy of the world you all know, Sauron's master, Vala, that is a creator for the Tolkien universe. And Morgoth did not want to come out because he was afraid of Fingolfin, but he had to come out not to be disgraced in front of his own soldiers. Morgoth carried a huge mace called Gron, called the Hammer of the Underworld. Every time he struck, craters opened on the ground, lavas erupted. Fingolfin moved like a lightning bolt with his sword Ringil. He dodged Morgoth's blows and wounded him exactly 7 times. Morgoth was screaming in pain. Finally, Fingolfin got tired and fell under Morgoth's shield. Even when Morgoth stepped on his neck with his foot, Fingolfin with his last strength thrust Ringil into Morgoth's foot. From that day on, Morgoth remained lame forever and his wounds never healed. He had left an Eru, the strongest being in the universe, lame. At this level, we must also commemorate Gil, Galad, and Elendil. In the War of the Last Alliance, at the end of the Barad Jar siege, when Sauron personally descended to the battlefield, these two were the ones who stopped him. With Gil, Galad's spear Aeglos, and Elendil's sword Narsil, they fought against Sauron. Both died, but they also knocked Sauron to the ground. When Isildur came and cut the finger, Sauron was already on the ground, waiting for the finish him strike. Knocking down a Maya Sauron in physical combat is not something every brave man can do. Level 7 forces of nature and wizards. Before finishing the list, we must mention a category that goes beyond sword mastery. These use swords too, use staffs too, sometimes they throw a huge rock piece at your head too. Gandalf, namely Mithrandir. As Gandalf the Grey, he fought with the Balrog. He fought not just on the bridge but everywhere. After falling too, for days, inside fire and water, he fought with that demon up to the summit of the mountain and killed it. This grandfather of ours, who both does magic and swings a sword with Glamdring the foe, hammer sword in his hand, and is a Maya, is actually in the same league as Fingolfin at level 6, but is forced to use his powers limitedly. Gandalf's battle with the Balrog was a battle beyond our known perception of battle. It lasted 10 days. They fought while falling. They fell into water and fought. They chased in tunnels, then they climbed the endless stair and fought again at the summit of the mountain. Gandalf died there. That is, he really died. His soul left the universe, but Eru sent him back. That is why Gandalf is not just a wizard, but also one of the most stubborn and powerful characters of Middle-earth. And we move on to the Ents. Treebeard and his friends against Saruman, who slaughtered the forest, destroyed Saruman's fortress, Isengard, with stones and sticks. Saruman had spells, machines, Uruk-hai, but none could stop these Ents. Their weapon was not swords. So, which is your favorite? The cursed Turin who gutted the dragon, King Fingolfin, who left a divine power, namely Morgoth lame, or the gardener Sam who saved save the world with just pure courage, write your own ranking in the comments. And if one day you encounter an orc horde in Middle-earth, pray that you have an elf or Vala by your side. Don't forget to subscribe to Panora, like the video, and turn on that damn bell. Until I publish the next list, stay away from the shadows. Goodbye!